everyone. We're going to sing 3 pieces from our concert. Our concert is actually tomorrow night, so as soon as we're done here, we're running to our dress rehearsal in the auditorium. The first piece we're going to start out with is an arrangement of Joy to the World.
Joy to the world. Joy to the world. Joy to the world. Joy to the world. Joy to the world. The Lord is come. Hallelujah. 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 Prepare him room.
And heaven and nature sing.
And nature, joy to the world, 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 the Savior reigns. Hallelujah, 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 hallelujah. Rocks, hills, and plains. Joy, repeat the sounding. Sing Gloria, sing Gloria, sing Gloria, oh, sing Gloria, sing Gloria, Gloria, with truth and grace. Hallelujah, 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 hallelujah. Hallelujah, and wonders of his. Hallelujah, 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 hallelujah. Repeat the sounding. Joy to the world, joy to the world, joy to the world. The Lord is come.
Our next piece this evening is a piece of music called The Song We Sing, which is obviously very appropriate. It's written by a local composer. His name is Jacob Narbrud, and he incorporates a wonderful inclusive text for the holiday message that says, no matter who you are, where your background is from, all are welcome here. So enjoy. Our last piece this evening is another holiday favorite, O Come All Ye Faithful. A number of years ago, it was made really popular. This particular arrangement was made really popular by the a cappella group Pentatonics, and so this is our interpretation.
Come, all ye faithful, joyful and triumphant. O come ye to Bethlehem. Born the King of angels. O come, let us adore. O come, all you. Oh, come, let us adore Him, Christ. Oh, come, all ye faithful. Oh, come, all ye faithful. Oh, come, all ye faithful to Bethlehem. Oh, come, all ye faithful. Oh, come, all ye faithful. Oh, come, all ye faithful to Bethlehem. Oh, sing choirs of angels. Oh, come, all ye sing in exaltation. Oh, come ye to Bethlehem. Oh, come and behold Him, born the King of angels. Oh, come, let us adore Him. Let us adore Him. Oh, come, let us adore Him, Christ. Oh, come, all ye faithful. Oh, come, all ye faithful. Oh, come, all ye faithful to Bethlehem. Oh, come, all ye faithful. Oh, come, all ye faithful. Oh, come, all ye faithful to Bethlehem.
Oh, come all ye, oh, come all ye faithful, oh, come all ye, oh, come all ye faithful,
Oh, come, all ye. Oh, come, all ye faithful. Oh, come, all ye. Oh, come, all ye faithful. Oh, come, all ye. Oh, come, all ye faithful. Oh, come, all ye. Oh, come, all ye faithful. Oh, come, all ye. Oh, come, all ye faithful. Oh, come, all ye. Oh, come, all ye. Oh, come, all ye faithful. Oh, come, all ye faithful. Oh, come, all ye faithful to Bethlehem. Oh, come, all ye faithful. Oh, come, all ye faithful. Oh, come, all ye faithful to Bethlehem. Oh, come, all ye faithful. Oh, come, all ye faithful. Born the King of angels. Oh, come, let us adore Him. Oh, come, all ye. Let us adore Him. Oh, come, let us adore Him, Christ. Oh, come, all ye faithful. Oh, come, all ye faithful. Oh, come, all ye faithful to Bethlehem.
Thank you so much for having us. Have a good night, everyone.
That was fantastic. You're proud. What time is the concert? Tomorrow, you said?
Tomorrow night, 7 o'clock.
7 o'clock. Fantastic. That's an indication of the quality. It'll be great.
Thank you.
No, it's okay. That was a great way to start off the day. I kind of like this cozier venue. This is kind of nice. That was a nice echo behind us, too, for the performance. We are missing Carrie, but she'll be coming a little bit late, and Jamie's leaving a little early, so we're going to be trading off people in a little while. So why don't we get rolling with the committee and correspondence reports to the board. So first, the report of the student representatives. Ryan is staying for this and then leaving?
Yeah.
Okay. So thank you for coming. I know you want to get to rehearse.
Ready?
Yep, we're ready.
So this week, winter sports are officially underway. So I just came from basketball scrimmage, which was fun.
This past Friday, the Model UN Club participated in a conference at the University of Hartford, and basically what we do there is we come up with resolutions and we debate them, and we're each on different committees. So my committee was prison reform in different countries, and our country was Poland. So we basically came up with resolutions and discussed, the best solutions to the problems that face the world.
Today, the football team visited the local Central Connecticut State Hospital, and they donated toys that they collected these past couple weeks.
And then Mr. Boyle already mentioned this, but the winter chorus concert is tomorrow, and that's at 7. And we had a discussion in class today about how the theme isn't really Christmas or any other holiday, just because there's people who don't celebrate it, or there's people who December is just kind of another month for them. So our theme is more about kind of togetherness and unity in this time of the year.
And lastly, this Friday, the National Honor Society is hosting the Pajama Day. That's a bunch of schools nationwide participate in it for the CCMC. And that's it from us.
Thank you very much. Thank you. All right, so the next up on the agenda are the committee assignments. I guess I'll read off, I know that to make it public, we'll read off the names of the new committees. And we have new committees that we voted on during the last meeting as well, purpose and title. So the previous communications committee is now known as the Community Engagement Committee, and Julia will be the chair, and Tracy Sisti is the member and the vacant. So the next person that we bring on, and we are having interviews on the 17th of December. So after that point, we'll have our full board with us, and that person will be on the Community Engagement Committee, with Brian acting as the administrative liaison. Finance and Operations, formerly ERC, will have Matt as chair, and Tim Oakes and Adam Selena will round out the committee, and Jeff Cugno is the administrative liaison. The Curriculum Committee, formerly was Student Achievement, we'll have Carrie Sasso as the chair, myself and Jamie will round out the committee, and Aaron McGurk is the administrative liaison. And then we have the ad hoc, nothing has changed there, well, except actually it'll be Julia, Matt, and Carrie with Brian. And then the ad hoc committee for review of policy book with Tim as the chair, Julia, Brian, and Aaron. So committee reports. I think that ours was not the only committee to meet. I'll start with since Carrie's not here, I'll start with the curriculum committee. And we heard from Eileen and Aaron in a presentation. We had met with them a few weeks ago before the last meeting as well, had a few questions. Did a great job addressing the concerns and addressing the questions, and Eileen will be reporting on the program of studies, which was the main concern, a little bit later in the meeting. And I believe there was also was there a finance meeting as well?
There was.
Oh, sorry, wrong way. I forgot. I'm in the old world still. All right.
We met on December 5th, the morning of December 5th. The purpose of the meeting was to discuss the current status of where we are with this year's budget, just kind of a checkpoint of where we are, where we believe the year will end out. Everything at this point looks, to be on track, that we're going to be, within our budget number without any, barring any surprises, without any issues. We also talked about the creation of next year's budget, which we know the administration is hot and heavy into, but we will start to see some results for that shortly. And we also talked about the committee setting up standard meeting times throughout the year, so we will meet a minimum of once a month prior to this board meeting. So we will have regular reports on where we are with budget, with the high school closeout, with facilities, anything that should be running through this committee on a regular basis. So.
Thank you. And that actually reminds me. Oh, you have another one?
Adam, did I leave anything out?
No, you did an excellent job.
Okay.
Thank you.
And actually, along the same lines, curriculum committee is also going to be meeting on a more regular basis this year, where we'll have more timely meetings to address some of the issues that come up, so we're not feeling quite so pressed for time when we do have an issue that we want to talk about as well. The CREC report. Now, Tracy is actually a CREC liaison. This is going to be a new standing item in the committee reports. Is there anything today, Tracy?
Basically, the last two meetings we've had, the common conversation, if I get this right, I think is going before legislation, is about, I'm not saying it's happening, changing the times for high schoolers to go to school, making it a later time. apparently one town in our state has already done that, and it ended up costing them about $1 million in transportation issues. So that is something that we keep talking about. Half it's divided, pro and con, but that's about it. Everything else is fine.
I think we have about $1 million extra to let high school keep people asleep another half hour in the morning.
The kids might pay for that.
Yeah. Thank you. Correspondence to the board.
No correspondence this evening.
And the last item on the committee reports is the CABE CAPS Convention. I was not able to go, but I do want to hear from some people. Before we do, there is another day tomorrow. The CABE leadership is tomorrow, and I'm going to be taking the day off from work and going to that all day. To be trained on how to be a board president, I guess, adequately. Who went to the CABE CAPS Convention and wants to share anything? Julia?
So I went just on Friday and I attended some sessions. I attended one session on social emotional learning and teaching. It was funny, I was talking to Brian before and he kind of gave me the nudge to go and he was like, no, it's good stuff, it's important. And, you know, it definitely gave me a new perspective, you know, as a board member, as things come our way of there's a lot about it. It helps me both as a teacher and a board member, but just to know more about it and understand it more. The way they presented it, it was presented in a different light than I'm used to, just more or less that the teacher needs to be in the appropriate social emotional place, like with their EQ to effectively reach students. And then students are then able to reciprocate that. And then I think a bunch of us were all in similar sessions, so I'll let them share on that as well. And then Tracy and I were in one session together about 21st century learning, and it was real. I was blown away, but I will let Tracy share about that, because if I share about everything I went to, then Tracy and Matt won't have anything to share about. So I found it really beneficial. I thought it was really high quality professional development, the sessions I attended. I know sometimes they're hit or miss, and but I really just tried to be mindful this year. If, you know, I went into a session and it wasn't where I thought it should be going, I kind of went to a different one within the first 10 minutes. We kind of discussed that as a board, and I took a lot out of it. And it was also nice to spend time with fellow board members as well as Brian that day. And I always seem to get something out of that. So I'll pass it off.
Thank you. Somebody else?
I was in one of the sessions with both Julia and Tracy, so I'm not going to talk about that one. I'm going to talk about the session I went to with Brian, which was about creating the budget. There was a presentation by another district on what their process looked like and how they got community buy-in and where they started that. And I thought that it was going to be this super enlightening moment of, that's what we need to do here, only to realize as we're sitting there, we are an early adopter. We're already doing most of what they were presenting on early on already. The only thing that I would tell you that I took away is that they start earlier. They start their process in October with building out the budget with the board involved early on, and then they start so that by the time they get to the end, those are all really just public meetings. The budget's already built, and now it's public meetings, so they're really getting the message out to the public in an earlier place and much more aggressively. So there were a few takeaways from it. Brian and I had already talked about how we should incorporate this into our process. It may not be able to happen this year because we're already into this process, but moving forward.
Can I ask you something about the budget,
Yes.
what you're just talking about? So having an earlier timetable, though, I wonder how, I can only imagine the stress on administrators. You're walking in the door, and then a week later, you have to get your budget numbers ready and passed on. Did they address that at all?
So that's actually the interesting part is the board, their full board? It is their full board. Their full board sits in with the administrators' process as observers, listening to what you guys are trying to put together so that we have an understanding where that would come from early on, why that's a need, why that conversation is taking place, how it's going to impact the students, and why it would make schools better. So that's their process. we're not necessarily, but they've been developing that for over 5 years now. So it's been and they change it every so much. They tweak it along the way. I know that Tracy's going to report, but I also want to report that the Berlin Board of Education also received 3 awards. We received 2 awards of recognition for communication, and we received a level 2 Board of Distinction award. So we're just, we're doing great work, and we were recognized for that.
I saw the photograph in the Cape newspaper when it came, yes.
Yeah.
Nothing under it.
Nothing under it, but I saw the photograph.
Can't have everything.
You guys look very photogenic. Tracy, did you have something else?
I really enjoyed it. I was there 2 days, and I went to a lot of classes. I did do a lot with Julia, and I loved the tech one about where we're going. That was kind of shocking. They talked about our future, like how drivers are going to be extinct and how farmers are, everything is now AI. It's all going to be robots and stuff. It was really interesting, the introduction of 5G rolling out into 2020 and what's happening and how teachers and educators need to jump on this. It was scary, but very, very enlightening. I did a Finnish school one. Someone went to Finland and they talked about that. And I did a communication one, and I really got a lot out of that about social media and possibly talking about reintroducing it for the board and the positive aspects of it. But I loved it. I thought it was great. I got a lot.
Excellent. Actually, when I go to those things, I find there's like 2 different kinds of conferences. One, where it's just really cool to be there. And you're thinking, these are great ideas, and this is very cool. The second one is, here's something I can bring back to the board, and we can take action on, whether it's Matt's timetable, or some of the 21st century skills that you're talking about, or what was the last thing you just mentioned? The communication, social media. I like those ideas that there's something we can actually act on, have a discussion and act on to improve what we do. Very good. Thank you, everybody. And now it's time for the audience of citizens. Is there anybody that would like to address the board tonight? All right. Thunderous silence. Okay. I'm looking forward very much to my piece tomorrow, and I hope when I go to the CAPE conference, I'm able to bring something back myself. So the consent agenda. Is there anybody that would like to add or remove anything from the consent agenda? All right, hearing nothing. Is there a motion?
Move to
No.
Move to approve the consent agenda as presented.
Seconded by Tim. And so, all those in favor, vote aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Passes unanimously. New business. Facilities-related update. Mr. Cugno will report.
I only have one thing to report from 2 weeks ago. We did talk about, at that time, we talked about 2 projects. One was getting the floor done at Willard. That seems to still be on track. The schedule was jockeyed a little bit in association with the principal, and I think everything is going to work very well there, from what I hear. I have a little bit of sad news. We reported last time that the McGee painting of the gym, the floor is already completed, was going to be done during Christmas. That looks like, again, it's going to be pushed back. When we switched over our money, you remember the 1% rollover, it goes to the town for them to administer to get things done. The money was set aside. That's an interesting project because they thought they were going to go directly, and talking to Doug, they thought they were going to go directly to the state contract, state construction contract to get it done, because that's always a good way to get a price and so on and so forth. So they spent some time getting some costs on that, and they were all over the place. And because there was no particular spec on the actual painting and how many hours it was going to take and what the trim was and everything else, they couldn't compare one price to another price. So what the town decided to do is step back a little bit, ask an architect to give them a particular specification for this project. They did that. They got it designed. They now are putting it out to bid. And even up until a week or so ago, we expected to still be able to get the bid back in and get it done in Christmas. What I was told today is that the bids will be back not in time to get them approved by the town council and to go forward during the Christmas season. So what they're going to try to do is, it's still on track and the money's in place, what they're going to try to do is get it done in 1 or 2 of the vacations and or if there's any time periods they have to go over, is to ask. This is not anything set yet. This is something that we would ask the principal and everybody else about, is to use half of the gym for a couple days as it dries, go back and do the other half. None of that actually has been approved yet until we get the bids in. We decide what makes some sense, make sure the costs are fine. In any event, even if that doesn't work in these vacations, we're hoping it will. But if it doesn't work, then it would be done immediately when schools let out.
Is there any role for us or anything that we can do to help this thing going forward, or is this completely in the town's hands right now?
Not that I'm aware of. I can just say to you that I'll try to stay as much as involved as I can now to make sure there's no other stutter steps, but these are contracts, they're not major contracts. I mean, this is a $37,000, $38,000 contract, so it doesn't, get a heck of a lot of attention out there in the construction field, and so I'm assuming they're getting some good bids, and it'll get done under a schedule.
All right, thank you. Yeah, please.
You mentioned the specs for this job. The specs are paint the walls. So I'm just confused by this. I just came from McGee actually now from a basketball game. So, I mean, beyond painting walls, what else is in there that we're missing?
No, it's preparing the walls, obviously, do a lot of things, take things off, prepare the walls, put things back again, move a number of things, rehang things, it's a lot more than just paint. But still, it doesn't seem like it's anything. Problem is, it's such a big area, and it has so many, whether it be ductwork or other things hanging there that have to be taken for it, they couldn't get easy, quick prices from the state contract to do it, so they couldn't make a decision.
Is a color been picked out and everything? I mean, everything's...
There have been some colors picked out, and I understand the superintendent has been very, very involved in exactly what tinge is going to be done.
That's a little dangerous. Sal, I hope you're getting the color you like.
Sure.
So, yeah, you have to do, there's a couple things they were going back and forth on, like the type of paint that has to be used to get the ductwork. I think there's two different bids that are going. One is to do it all one color, and then also do maybe the wellness center upstairs to see how much that would be, or if you do it two colors, that's a whole other story, because they have to tape everything, and so they've gone back and forth. But the goal, I know Brian wants to see two colors. The two colors would be a lighter color with a green that is the same specs as the green that we use for the school colors, and that would be the ductwork. So that's what they've been going back and forth with, from what I understand. So it could be the gym and the wellness center, just the gym one color, the gym two colors. I think those are the bids that come back.
Yeah, if I may, the alternative, it's called an alternate. What they're doing, putting in a bid is an alternate if there's enough money available to do paint the wellness center also, because you're going to have painting contractors. That's not something that, I heard conversation on it because I was with the architects and they looked at it. But again, when you have people come in to give prices, you want to get as much information as you can. If in fact it's an alternate right now, we may not have money on it. We weren't anticipating not doing the gym in two colors, the green and the whitish or goldish or whatever you come up with. However, to get the price make sense, if it's bid well and there's extra money, we'll do the wellness center. If not, we won't. And if the town wants to come up with money to do the wellness center, they can do it. So it's a good idea to get an alternate anyways.
Thank you. Sal, just out of curiosity, does this alternate timetable, not that we have any control over it, but does it cause you pain or agitation?
It will cause us a little pain and agitation, but we'll see what we have to, I don't know how long it's going to take, or what, obviously I would consult with the teachers to see where we can put them. We have really one gym, one wellness center, and health classroom, so we'll see what we can do. There some places use cafeteria, but the cafeteria needs to be used during a certain time. If the weather's nice and we do weather, maybe go outside, so I'm not sure exactly.
Okay.
We would consult with the teachers.
Just one more thing, and I'm not sure how long the bid's going to be good for, but it might make sense just to wait till the summer then, rather than disrupting the school days. So that's just, I'm not sure how long the bids are going to be good for, if there's 30-day, 60-day, whatever it is, but we might want to look at something for the summer.
I assume the bid is going to have to go along with, the bid's going to have to go along with a schedule, Adam.
Yeah.
So if their schedule gets pushed out to the summer, there'll be a bid that'll be good for the summer.
Okay.
If it stays here, they'll have a bid that has to do a lot more work to come up. They'd have to get double prices.
All right, thank you very much. Now we have the report on district test results. Dr. McGurk?
Thank you. So, welcome to the
results up on the screen, and I'm joined by Adjournment, our Director of Literacy and Social Studies, and Carl Watson, our Director of Science.
This is going to be very difficult for us to see at this angle. So if we're going to be using this, I'm just...
After this page, they're mostly bigger.
Okay, all right. All right.
So, this that are used on the state accountability index. So this is just a capture of the state accountability index that I shared with you before. And the testing that we're sharing tonight, the smart balance assessments and the NGSS assessments, which we'll be reporting after the very first time tonight, and the SAT, are the three types of testing that make up this testing report and that feed ultimately into the accountability index. So you'll remember that several years ago, the state of Connecticut created the accountability index to give a broader perspective on a number of different factors that influence and impact student achievement in the school district. So rather than what had been the case before when all state level judgments about quality of schools and which schools qualify for special assistance or state intervention was driven just off of the CAP and the CMT or just off of SMART balance. There's now a much broader perspective of the kinds of things that you're looking at. So I know that it is hard to read, but because we're very familiar with it, we can decipher this. It's really the English language arts performance indexes, the science. The row for the science is blank right now because the NGSS assessment that was administered for the first time last spring. The state has not yet publicly released the science results. So we have our own, but we don't have all the state comparisons and all of that piece of it. The growth indexes and the absenteeism, parents for college and career readiness, which has to do with kids taking advanced level courses and taking passing exams like EP exams that are part of that. The absenteeism, on track for graduation, and then things like arts access and physical fitness. So we're going to start with the Smarter Balanced results, and this is the annual state testing that's required under the Every Child Succeeds Act. We test students under the Smarter Balanced in every grade level from grades 3 to 8 in English language arts and mathematics. Testing is administered in the spring of the school year, so typically for us from just after implementation through the month of May. And that is because while theoretically everyone in the building can be assessed at the same moment, it puts inordinate demand on the Wi-Fi connectivity to have all of the devices connected at the same moment in time. And also because we need to give small group settings and special monitoring to some groups of students, so we can't have, for example, all of the third, fourth, and fifth graders in the building or all of the seventh and eighth testing at the exact same moment for those reasons. The parents and families who take the Smarter Balanced assessment get an individual score report that has the results of their students, and then their student compares with the school and the state results just not even had acknowledgement that those reports just went out a short time ago, and it's really designed to give us sort of a snapshot of how the district is performing overall in terms of ELA and in terms of mathematics. So I'm going to turn it over to Lori Carr, who oversee those areas as part of their district responsibilities. Thank you.
So English language arts, you can see the 4 areas that are covered. The 4 reporting purposes, the state of Connecticut puts writing, research, and inquiry together into one score area. And what we want all students to do is we look at where they score a 3 or a 4, So we receive scores back, and they're either at a level 1, 2, 3, or 4. We would love all students to score a 3 or a 4, and you can see by grade how many students or what percent of students scored in those areas. What we also look at, so this is obviously very broad data, we also look at where students have grown. So oftentimes students will still show growth, but they show it and they may stay in a level 2, or they may stay in a level 3, even though they continue to grow. So we continue to look at that individually with teachers and administrators. So even though the state doesn't use the DIRG anymore as a reporting piece, we do show where we are. So the DIRG is generally people in our same socioeconomic group, and you can see where Berlin is within that group. And there also, we look at it by subgroup, so you can see the number of students by grade level for students with disabilities. And then high needs students, and high needs students are English learners, those students receiving free and reduced lunch, as well as students with disabilities. So it has all of those students in that group. So again, we can drill down and we can look to see who those students are. And we can make plans to see how we can make improvement.
So very similar to the ELA, in mathematics, we have 4 claim areas. Our first is concepts and procedures. That's really all of our grade level content standards. So that's one area. And then after that, we have 3 areas that are related to our math practices. So that's more of your problem solving, reasoning, data analysis. You'll see 2 and 4, problem solving and data analysis, are starred. Those are grouped together because of the number of test items. It's not big enough to report separately. So those are the areas you receive sub-scores on for the students, and we can look a little more closely at. Also for the math, it's broken into 2 different tests. So the computer adaptive tests for ELA, math also has, that adjusts within the grade level for students, and they're mainly standalone items. And then math also has a performance task, which is an application set of items. There's a scenario with information, and then 4 to 6 questions related to that, and includes open-ended and more of that level 4 depth of knowledge. So that's a little bit more difficult area. In math, here are our scores looking at levels 1, 2, 3, and 4, as Lori mentioned, for 3rd through 8th grade. We had a couple of grades here. It was their highest performance in the 5 years of taking the assessment, which was wonderful. 5th grade, I anticipate there could be a question about, because that out of the grade levels is the lowest for our 3s and 4s, but that is common across the state. That is the trend. What happens in 3rd and 4th grade with some of our foundational areas, we get into 5th grade, and now they become more of the application-based. And so across the state, that is the trend, that tends to be out of the 5th grade levels, or out of the 6th grade levels.
I was just in a meeting with other assistant superintendents, and we were all commiserating about the same thing, because in many of our districts, it follows the same pattern, that scores in 3rd and 4th grade look pretty solid, but then it goes down to 5th grade, and then it seems to go back up again to 8th grade. So that oftentimes the 8th grade is similar to the 4th grade score, which is pretty much worse.
So they talk about that quite often, and that's something as a state we're working on in terms of curriculum and work with teachers. And as Lori said, while the DIRG is not meant for comparing test scores, it is still something that we report out on. And here we are compared to our surrounding areas. If you look, the top 13 in our DIRG are all within 9 percentage points of each other, so it's pretty close. And then also the subgroups with our students with disabilities and high needs, again, grouping free and reduced lunch, language learners as well.
So we take a look at what we're doing, because obviously we want all students to continue to grow. So there are lots of things that are in place that are happening. There's a lot of professional development. So in the middle school, we've done a lot of training social studies teachers how to teach writing in their classes, so they get extra practice within that discipline. We also have Math Studio, which has grades 2 through 8, and it's expanded, and teachers are really involved in that. And I think Cara has mentioned many times that she sees so much of the continuation happening and the student thinking really expanding.
That was the presentation we saw last year.
Yes,
when-
at Willard School.
At Willard School.
With the fifth graders and fractions.
Right.
That's all based on the type of work we're doing with students.
And so we have thoughts of how we are reviewing and revising protocols for test prep. We do use practice tests, and we have interim assessments, so those are based on Smarter Balance. Teachers at every grade level, grades 3 through 8 in ELA, give 2 interim-based assessments or interim assessment blocks a year in that, and they use that to teach students. So we can't, and the state says that we should do that. We can't ask students to step in cold to an assessment as big as Smarter Balance without giving them some type of practice. So this really gives students a chance to practice. It also gives them a chance to ask us questions as they're going around, and we can address that, which we can't do when they're taking Smarter Balance. Do you want to talk about interim assessment blocks in math?
Very similarly to ELA, we are using the interim assessment banks in math. We are using some items instructionally where we're either including them in daily instruction for warm-ups or exit tickets. Also, some of our unit assessments we've added them onto. And then, just like ELA, we have 2 per grade level that are being given as is on the computer electronically so that they can have their practice, their exposure, the opportunity to speak with us and the teachers to get a little bit of support and have practice with the item types. Because there are a lot of tech tools that in and of themselves, if they don't practice with, could throw them off during testing. So we're doing our best to make sure they're prepared.
And it's not enough that we give the assessment, we have to do something with the information. So generally, our support staff that's within the buildings, Cara and I work with them, and they work with teachers on how to read all of the data and how to then take that and change instruction as they move forward. So it becomes more formative than summative.
We actually get item by item breakdown on the
Yep.
interims, which is really nice.
And then we're also working with the PPS department to really look at how we're teaching reading in all grade levels to make sure that students are getting what they need in order to succeed, not on the test, but in life. So we're doing a lot of that as well.
Same with math, and really looking at the resources they're using, working with students and trying to include our special education teachers in some of our content PD when possible.
Yes.
Which has been something we really feel strongly about doing. It's very hard because they are stretched very thin because they have other PD that they have to be part of as well with some legal mandates. So we do what we can, the teachers are really working hard on that. So going on to our science results with
Before you do that,
NESS.
can I ask you something?
Oh, sure.
I'm curious. You had mentioned that the 5th grade scores were kind of down everywhere. I noticed that 7th grade scores had a small dip in them as well. And I'm just curious, do dips like that impact on instructional strategies? Do you say, I know you're talking about working on things everywhere, but do you focus on 5th and 7th, or do you, how exactly do you approach that?
So generally speaking, 7th grade is one of our higher performing grade levels. That particular cohort of students in both 5th and 6th grade were at 49%. So they actually made some very nice, when you look at the growth data, which is not part of this, they actually made some very nice growth because we went up 7 percentage points.
That's excellent.
But as a cohort, throughout the last few years, they had not been at one of our strongest groups. So it does look a little bit lower, but in general, it's actually not. Our 7th grade is generally one of our high performing in the low 60s.
So in a general sense, one of the parts of the ongoing curriculum revision is to consider this information when we're making decisions about, for example, the length of time that we spend on units, the order of the units across the year, if we need to buy additional resource materials to support a particular grade level. So I know especially when we first made the switch to Common Core, grade 5 was one of the areas that was most heavily impacted in that there was a huge shift in the content at that particular grade level, and it required a lot of time and energy for people to make sure that fifth grade teachers were up to speed on what the new standards were and had the materials available to support them.
That's a great question though, because that also stood out. I probably should have mentioned that before. It was 5th grade that we are seeing that common trend, and that usually stands out when we look at all of the data. But that is, like I said, something across the state. But the 7th grade, that happens to be that cohort group. And they are making growth year to year. So we're hopeful that in the 8th grade they'll show the same. For the science assessment, as Erin mentioned, it was our first year, so it's a baseline year of testing. We are assessing in grades 5, 8, and 11. And unlike the test they used to take for science, this is now also done electronically, just like our Smarter Balanced. We have 3 claim areas as well, or 3 subcategories based on the disciplines. They are tested in life sciences, physical sciences, urban space sciences. The test is broken up with some standalone items and then some clusters of items based on scenarios as well. And again, we have nothing to compare this to at this point. It is our first round. We also, as Erin mentioned, do not have state results or information on other districts yet. It has not been released. They had said late fall, end of October, end of November. We still are not sure how people performed, but for a baseline, I would say we're in pretty good shape to start. About 61% at a goal or above for year 4 in 5th grade, 66.3%, and then 58.1% in 11th grade. And we are doing a lot of work in science at this point. So that's where we are there. We're hopeful that we'll have more information from the state soon. We also know there's a lot of discussion about what the test will look like this spring. They're making a few changes. There is a potential it may become adaptive like the math and ELA. As of now, it was a fixed test. And for subgroup information, we do have information on students with disabilities, but the online report does not give us information on free and reduced lunch, and the state hasn't released any additional data, so we do not have anything more than that at this point. And in terms of ongoing work and next steps in science, because we really had to jump right in, it is definitely ongoing work. At the elementary level, we do have at least 2 units that are new per grade level that teachers are digging into with students. Very much hands-on, student-centered exploration types of work. And we actually this year in 5th grade rolled out a brand new unit that I worked on for a week last summer with some science people from other districts. And we're really excited about that. It's a very interesting unit. In middle school and high school, they've been doing a lot of work and they've been getting some training on next-gen science, units of instruction, 3D assessment, a lot of things. Actually, the high school had a 2-day training this fall all together as a department, which Erin and I both attended parts of, and it was fantastic for them to have that time together. They are trying and rolling out some new units there as well. Also, we now have access to interim assessment and item banks. For science, they came out late last year. It was a little bit late for us to use before testing, but this year at each level, we're digging into those and using that information. The high school also has done some good data analysis on our initial results. They have broken it down based on course sequence, because we have many different sequences that students can take from year to year. And so we're really taking a look at that to see how that's impacting groups of students and their performance. Any questions on the science? That's really, as a baseline, all we have at this point. Okay. We have our SAT data.
Before we go to SAT data, is it okay if I ask a question? Sure. So you talked about comparative data, you talked about growth. From my perspective, this is the 5th year of Smart Balance. I think that it would be nice for the board to see year over year over year over year, so that while I'm sure there is growth, we can actually see that from a visual point of view, because the data that you gave us tonight is this year only. It doesn't reflect on what happened, whereas in relation to last year, just a point of, just to see the comparison year over year over year. I heard you talk that you can drill all the way down to the student to see that the individual student is actually growing even within, which is great. Do we take that data and then also use it to look at how the teacher, individual teacher, is working within those? So, how do I want to say it? So that teacher with the highest students are in and achieve at a higher level, is that consistent year over year over year over year, that that's one of the higher teachers? And the likewise is if there's a teacher who perhaps needs some help, is there a way to identify additional professional development for them? You look at me. I was looking at because I can see, I know his reaction.
You can break the data down that way.
So I know
So the
for
question
high
is,
school, for the high school, one of the things we started with is course sequence, just to see if from a curriculum standpoint, that's having an impact, and then you can break it down further for that.
So at elementary and middle school, and I want to speak kind of back to a few years ago, I think when Brian, we had done the presentation originally and looking at growth and everything like that. When we look at levels of performance, the expectation is not that year to year kids will jump levels. You can show growth and stay in the level that you're
I
at.
totally understand.
So what we are really looking more closely at than the level of performance is the growth. Because we want our students who are performing below grade level to make that extra jump, so to meet their target and hopefully then some, because every student is given a growth target. That's also true when we look at our students who perform at a level 4. We want them to continue that, and in order to maintain that, they have to keep showing growth, and that can sometimes be really difficult if we're not providing enough rigor for them to continue to exceed above the expectations. That's something we definitely look really closely at. So we're looking at all students, all teachers. All the teachers get to meet with their principals and go through the data if they want additional information from us. Our math and reading specialists work with the teachers. We are very careful because sometimes you might be an excellent teacher. The population of students you get on a particular year may not come into you as a 3 or 4. So we really want to look at that growth, because if you have 1s and 2s who are continuing to make their growth, you're doing a great job. And it may not show out in the results. We are absolutely
I understand that completely. It's just with the data that was up there was no way for me to sit here and.
And see that.
Right.
Tara and I met with all the principals, and we talked about the data, and they made plans of how they speak with teachers, where they go from there, how they share information with their staffs.
And as you mentioned, if there are teachers who continuously are not having students making the growth we're hoping for, then that is something that we will work with.
If I could just add, so we do have the capability to do that. In the past, we did actually go and color code every student, whether they made growth or not, but red or green, broken down by class or teacher, school averages, shared among different schools. So we totally have the ability to do that. And in the past, we looked at, we used to have supporting cards that used to be how many were at level 3 at gold, how many were advanced. But now we're looking at this performance index saying, what's their growth against themselves? So are they growing? So that's more of what the data is broken out to today, Matt, than what it was in the past, just how many are getting pushed, how many are we pushing over the bar into 3? And that's what the state's even looking at, more giving us, in the past, we've had schools that did not hit their target. And then we would have removed what, well, I don't know the exact terminology was. Do you know the name when we're in? Focus. We were focused all the time. But we don't have that at this time as far as I know. But the other part that we really have to really be cognizant of is that those subgroups that you see broken out, those subgroups are very, typically we make our goals as a whole, but the subgroups oftentimes where that's how we end up as a focus school too. Those subgroups are as important as a whole, or even more important, because the gap often doesn't close as much.
What prompted my question is I believe that in some years past, it may not have been last year or the year before, but
Yes, it is.
there was always a comparison to the previous year, and it was also relative to what the state average might have been, so that you can see kind of where we fell in that. And I just didn't see that this year, that's why I'm asking the question.
So I have 2 things I would like to contribute. So to build off what Matt said, in the previous years, we've also gotten like the printout. I know we're not doing the printouts, but as I went through the folder on Schoology, I didn't see this in here. Was it just me? Okay. So I didn't see it, and I think it would have been helpful to have this in Schoology, but also another thing I think would have also been helpful is to see the comparative data of where we were last year and the previous year against the DERGs, because it's always good to see like where we placed last year to this year, So, but great job.
We'll make sure that's a little.
Yeah.
There's a lot of info, so
I know.
every year we make some
Trying to figure out what
Right.
we want to see and what we don't
But
want
that's
to see.
info we can
Absolutely.
get to you.
Yeah, thank you.
So, all right,
So the information up there on the SATs are really just, so obviously students get a total score, and then they have sub-scores, section scores that are evidence-based reading and writing, and math. But the other pieces that are on there are other ways that we can access student data, so we can look to see where we can support more student growth in these areas. So for example, we can find out if there are social studies questions that we need to beef up within our social studies courses or in our science courses or wherever, so that we can continue to have our students experience these types of questions so that they're ready for the SAT. And so that's basically this kind of slide that explains every way that we can look at data. When you take a look at the evidence-based reading and writing, you can see where our average score is. And so you can see that it's basically, for 3 of the 4 years, it's around the same. And last year there was a spike. And remember, these are different kids. Again, the state levels them off in levels 1 through 4, and you can see where our students were in this.
You'll see the same spike. We had a spike last year for math as well.
Right.
So do you remember last year when I said, when everyone's excited about the spike, is that to be cautious because that was under kids?
One thing to point out too is the benchmark has shifts slightly based on the test administration. So it's not a static score. So it does shift a little bit. So it's not like you can always shoot for this exact number on the test. So it does shift a little bit each year.
Again, this is DERB just for this year. And then, again, looking at subgroups. And I think it was Brian who said that this is the area that we really need to continue to look at, and we talked about it earlier.
So, very carbon copy kind of, where we saw a spike last year with that particular, in 2018, that group of juniors on the test. The other 3 years have been a little bit more consistent. We did also see that as a state, the average scores have gone down this year as well. We are still well above the state average. We are third. And then our subgroups, which again, that's something we need to continue to do.
Could you go back to the third for a second?
Oh, do you want to do ELA as well, or just?
No.
Sorry.
Okay, thank you, sorry.
So yes, as we continue to look at what we're doing, so in English and social studies, there's been professional development. Teachers have gone out to College Board to find out how to really analyze this data and get information. They've brought it back to their departments and are using it in that way. It also helps them differentiate for their students, make sure that they're meeting the needs of individuals. We've updated the English curriculums. I think the important thing about all of our curricular areas is that we constantly look at them. Whereas nothing is ever static, which is sometimes to the dismay of all of us because we're constantly changing things, but we need to because we need to make sure that we're meeting the needs of students. And then there are opportunities for PSAT and SAT prep. At the beginning of the year, all of the department heads sit together and they look at, okay, where are we? What do we need to do? They look at various practice tests. They split them up so that they can teach to them, that they can administer them, and they use those. Also, students have Khan Academy accounts, which they can use to help practice.
Go after you each time, I feel like I'm saying the same thing. So very similarly, we are doing.
Okay. And I could just say ditto.
So in math, we are also doing quite a bit of work with our high school department, and Eileen, feel free to jump in if I miss anything. But we have done some work between middle and high school with course alignment and our vertical articulation with standards. There have been a lot of shifts with Common Core coming on several years ago with testing, in terms particularly with algebra and what it used to look like in 8th grade versus now what the algebra standards look like, definitely a shift. That group who just took the SATs this past spring, they were in that 7th, 8th grade when all of these changes happened. So very interesting to see. They also were our lowest performing 7th and 8th grade at the time on Smarter Balance compared to our scores since then. The department now has access to released items from the SAT. As of last spring, once we were assessed, that's new. Prior to that, they did not have access to look at the actual items from the assessment. And so in both departments, they're doing a lot of work actually really analyzing, determining where the content falls within different courses that students might be taking. They are looking at item types, really trying to make sure kids have more exposure, trying to make things fit in more authentically, so it's not just test prep. And they're doing quite a bit of work on that now and spending some of their PD time working together by course to really make sure they're aligning. There are some areas, based on the way our course sequence is set up, that they may not do as much with, such as like the probability statistics, where others are much more heavily covered. So they're really working to make sure that that analysis helps us to help the students. Khan Academy, students have accounts for that. That's also incorporated. Students have access there for practice and support resources. They're doing some work with the illustrative math resources. And in terms of assessment even, they are making some changes to some of the more traditional assessments to do more of the project-based learning model and a lot more performance task types of things. So we're really trying to continue to move ahead with the work.
Can you see who's actually utilizing the Khan Academy and like from a percentage standpoint, are a lot of students utilizing it?
We have, the majority of our kids are connected. How much they're actually using it is still, it's not as high as it should be. So, and the thing about the Khan Academy is it is customized. So students get their PSAT reports back and they log into Khan Academy. It is customized for their areas of strength and weakness. So it is something that we've been trying to work with and push with the teachers more. One of the things that we recently, having met with the English department supervisor, particularly for our 11th graders, with the PSAT scores that came back, is a focus on our students that are like on the bubble mark in terms of meeting the benchmark and really focusing in on that, and then also building in time for actual test prep as well at this point for our students.
Forgive my ignorance, do we actually have an SAT prep class, a course? I see adult ed does.
We do not have a course. We have it through adult ed. We do not have a course built into the school day. One of the things we did offer last year after school as an option for students, because the resources are free from College Board, is we actually invited and offered to students just time after school through working with one of our school counselors, just to come and work through the Khan Academy work as well.
Do you see anything good? Do you see potential in offering something like that as a course during the regular school day?
I think we could explore it. There's a few things that I think we need to take a look at. One of the things, we've been having a lot of conversation about the math. So what's happened as we have a lot of focus on the SBAC in terms of particularly in middle school and really focusing on the Common Core math, what's happened a little bit is it has put a lot of pressure on the Algebra 1 curriculum. So what's happening when students come into high school, they haven't necessarily had a full Algebra 1 curriculum. Some units have dropped out. So it's a little bit of a hybrid working through. We did a full data analysis on our SAT scores last year based on the course sequence that you were in. If you were in basically our advanced track or made it to pre-calculus, you had a much higher probability of meeting this, the benchmark. But we really need to get to that point with kids taking Algebra 2 as well. So even if I come to high school and I start with Algebra 1, Geometry, Algebra 2, I really should have that same probability of meeting benchmark by getting to that Algebra 2. And being that far, you're about 2/3 of the way through the year with the Algebra 2 curriculum. We also just attended a math workshop through CREC, and they talked a lot about problem stats. Some schools have actually gone to a modified geometry, more of an integrated approach, almost shortening a geometry course and building in a half-year problem stat during sophomore year or a second year of math, or somehow building that into the sequence sooner than maybe senior year, because there is a lot of probability in statistics. And believe it or not, some of the workshops I've attended recently with college admissions reps talk a lot about that as well. It's not always about getting to calculus. that having had that problem stat work is actually really beneficial and really important for students as they move on to post-secondary work.
Thank you.
So there'll be more discussion, and we're forming a committee to look at that. But that is definitely something common across the state we're finding.
I just want to say that we have a number of teachers at the high school who really become expert in Khan Academy, who have on our professional learning days offered sessions for their colleagues to help their colleagues become more aware of it, and people that are really working diligently on getting out, learning more about the way that the SAT test is designed, what items look like, and thinking about embedding that in the work so that instead of having like a crash, like prep course, that they're having experiences and practice through multiple courses and multiple experiences.
We actually have an intervention math course that specifically uses Khan Academy, so the teacher of that course is very well versed in Khan Academy and uses it matched up with their PSAT scores, and those students have actually shown really good growth. So
That's where, I think that's what Adam that was alluding
Yeah.
to. Are they actually using it, or we just have it available? Are there other courses that actually utilize Khan Academy as part of
if
the
you're
curriculum?
if you're in that intervention math course, you're definitely using it. Some of the teachers are using it. I will say I was a little bit more direct with the English department recently in terms of being more overt in using it for our current 11th graders to at least to start. But we do need to look at ways to integrate it more. It is a free resource for us right now, and we need to take advantage of using it. And I know College Board has put out data as well that basically the number of hours that you spend is actually correlating with some increased scores. So.
Thank you.
A lot being done. And just, I know, Matt, you had mentioned before with Smarter Balance, talking about growth. When we look at our cohort groups for the SATs, we're doing the same. So, we saw that spike last year with that particular cohort, but when we look at this year's and we look at the SAT they took in 10 and 11 prior to the SAT, they are making nice growth on that. I have that information on them. So we're really trying to look more closely at the group and how they're growing and continue to stay, again, above that state average pretty significantly. But they started out with slightly lower points than last year's group, so just want to put that out there. That is it.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next up is our program of study. There's some very exciting opportunities on the horizon for the high schoolers. So Eileen is going to discuss those.
So included in your packet, you have a draft copy of the program of studies. Please note it is not a final copy. It still needs a solid proofread before it goes to print. But we were also waiting on approval of some new program changes that we want to make sure that we include in the program of studies as well. So I also want to do a quick summary of the significant changes that describes a lot of the course changes. And just to keep that in mind, some of the things that we were considering as we were looking at our overall program is the needs and the interests of students to start with, as well as the support that students would certainly need. We also wanted to further develop the pathways that we began to build out last year, particularly in the elective areas. So just to remind you, in some of the elective areas, in all of the elective areas now, they have, we basically have created some suggested pathways for students. So for example, in art, there's a drawing and painting strand, a 2D strand, a 3D strand. In business, there's an accounting and finance strand, and a business management and accounting strand. And so one of the things that we've done is we've categorized our courses in those strands just as suggested pathways for students. So for students that develop a passion in a particular area, they have a suggested pathway that they can follow. We also want to continue, we want to support future careers, so we were taking that in mind in terms of some of our new course offerings, and we do want to continue to maximize our current FTE. So in terms of new courses, just very quickly, we are, next year in art, we're going to be offering the UConn ECE digital media. Janet Galasso went to get trained in that, so we're really excited to offer that UConn ECE opportunity. We're also in Family and Consumer Science, we're going to build out Child Development 2. We have a number of students in Child Development 1. We wanted to build out an additional course, an extension of Child Development before they take on the UConn Human Development course. In mathematics, we'll be offering the honors multivariable calculus, which basically is Calc 3. We have been offering that as an independent study. Next year, we actually have a cohort of 12 students next year as well as for the next few years. So we feel it's important to offer that as a full-fledged course versus an independent study as an online course. We're expanding our computer science opportunities. We're offering computer science discoveries 1 and 2. Those are semester courses. Those are basically introductory computer science courses. So for students that don't want to necessarily jump right into the AP computer science principles or the AP computer science A, that this is a really nice introduction for students. It can also segue into those AP courses should they want to do that. In social studies, they were looking a little bit at some of their elective offerings, and what they did is they actually did a survey of students to see what they were most interested in, and a couple of things that came out of that. The students are interested in debating current events, so an actual debate along with the idea of studying current events, and human rights and social justice class is going to be offered as well. Another class that we're piloting in the social studies department is a psychology lab. So we've actually been taking a look at our capstone program, and rather than offer a one-size-fits-all capstone program where we have students that take the first semester, they meet one day in the rotation and really work on an independent project with also some guidance from their capstone teacher, we've actually been trying to explore some course opportunities. So Psychology Lab is one of those opportunities that we're going to try out for next year. So students that really have a strong interest in psychology can take that as a semester course, and it will also fulfill their capstone requirement. So it will have the capstone requirements built into that course, but it will meet like a regular semester type course. So if we have success with that, we may actually look to do that. So for students that have a particular passion in a particular area, we may have a few other opportunities to offer in the future if that idea takes off. As far as Tech Ed, we're also going to be expanding our video game design and offering video game design 2, which is just an extension of video game design 1. And in world language, we're going to be offering a course called Transitional Spanish. So probably the best way to describe it is really like Spanish 1.5. So with our new graduation requirement for students where all students have to have 1 credit of world language, it's one way to meet their needs if we have students that normally wouldn't have taken the language, maybe shied away from it because it might have been an area of struggle for them, and maybe they need a little bit more time. Once they take Spanish 1, they can take this transitional Spanish and then go on to Spanish 2 should they want to stay in a world language strand. We've also been finding that students come out of middle school with a little bit of varied experience. Some students are really strong and they come right out and they're ready. Most of our students are ready to go right into Spanish 2. Some students just really need a little bit of extra time with language, and this transitional Spanish will offer that opportunity basically to bridge going into Spanish 2 for them. So in that way, it leaves our Spanish 1 a little bit more pure for students that are either new to the Spanish language or just new to taking language in general. Because right now, it's been very difficult for students that have already been in world language, maybe at the middle school for 2 years, but are still struggling. They're really not proficient and ready to move on to Spanish 2. So this transitional Spanish class will provide that bridge for students. We also like the idea of this because if students are moving on to post-secondary, depending, some colleges will require 2, if not 3 years of language in order to be exempt when we move on to whether it's 2 or 4 year school, depending on what the requirements are. So this might be a good opportunity for students as well to meet that 2 or 3 year requirement within the same language. So in terms of course revisions, there are 22 courses that have very minor changes. They might be name changes, prerequisite changes, grade level changes. Basically just things that will, changes that might appropriately represent things like curriculum modifications, feed into the pathways with the strands a little bit more. or just sort of kind of funnel kids a little bit more appropriately into some of these pathways. We also are reinstating one course. We are bringing back the UConn ECE Discrete Math. Discrete math is really, it's basically, it's like real application math. That's what the course is. Adam, I remember you asking about that class last year. So we currently have 85 juniors that are currently taking pre-calculus. Many of those students may opt to go on and take calculus senior year, but for senior, some may decide they don't want to take calculus, and that's okay. So we could encourage them to take Prob and Stat for a semester as well as this discrete math and offer them still an opportunity to earn some college credit that could eventually transfer because it is a UConn ECE course. So to me, that's also one of the things I always want to look at too, is that the, whether it's AP or the UConn classes, we want to widen the access. They don't always have to be for the highest flyers of students, and this discrete math is really a great opportunity for students, even if you're not like going into calculus or taking AP calculus. This is a great opportunity to earn college credit in a math class, and we wanted to make sure that we built out a pathway to bring that back in. So I am happy to say that we're only suspending 4 courses. We suspended a number of courses last year. This year we're only suspending 4, basically due to lack of interest. They just haven't been running, or they don't necessarily have a proper feeder in order to run next year. So ProStart 2, ProStart 1 is not running, so we actually don't have a feeder for that class for next year. Global poverty and current issues in American politics really just didn't take off, thus the social studies department surveying the students to see what they were interested in. And the world of technology we're currently suspending. That's been the tech ed course where they get a little bit of this and that, but one of the things we really want students to move into is the idea of intro to STEM design. It's not a new course, it's just a reconstitution of a course that we currently have, which will really introduce them to the design process, and that will really feed them into any particular area that they want to go into in the tech ed department. So those are the changes in terms of the courses. In terms of 2 new programs that I wanted to spend a little bit more time on, one program has to do with the school counseling workshops, which we're in the process of piloting this year. So we rolled out the freshman workshop as well as junior workshop, which junior workshop hasn't happened yet. That's happening 3rd quarter. But the freshman workshop we rolled out this year, it meets 1 time per rotation, 1 period per rotation, and this year is currently meeting for an entire semester. We're going to scale that back to a quarter. And what we want to do is roll out workshop for freshmen would have workshop 1st quarter, sophomores would have workshop 2nd quarter, and juniors would have workshop 3rd quarter. And the various topics of focus would be for freshmen, it's really all about transition to the high school, getting them acclimated to Berlin High School, understanding the resources, the ways to get involved and connected. Sophomores, the focus would be on career exploration. It's one of the things that I always feel like it's really shortchanged. It's frustrating for the school counselors as well because they don't get enough time to meet with their students. So we'll build this opportunity in. And for juniors, that focus is really going to be on that post-secondary planning. Whether it's career technical, whether it's work, whether it's military, whether it's 2-year or 4-year. They will have that time built into their schedule. A lot of times, the counselors, they're pushing into classes, so it's taking class time away. We talked a little bit about using advisory, but then you really don't have the fidelity of delivering the curriculum. You lose control of how the curriculum is getting delivered when you have 75 different people delivering your curriculum. So this allows the school counselors to deliver that curriculum with more fidelity. And in addition to that, it provides more opportunity. They're seeing the students on a more regular basis. The students can ask quick questions. They're not having to come out of class as often or set up an appointment. And so the counselors already have found it really beneficial in terms of seeing the freshmen and really getting to know them more than just the individual meetings. So they're able to do these workshops in addition to the individual meetings that will be taking place. So we're proposing that they would earn a 0.25 credit. It would be graded as a pass-fail because, one, we are using their time. We also would be working this into, they would take it opposite a science lab because as the new graduation requirement rolls up for PE and health, you may not remember this from last year, but in the past, PE and health was always wrapped around science lab, but to meet the new graduation requirements of the 2.0 credits, they really needed to be built out to semester courses. So this way we can utilize that time opposite the science lab to deliver these school counseling workshops. Does anyone have questions about the school counseling workshops? Okay. Adam, you have a question?
I was going to go back.
Oh,
one step,
okay.
if that's okay.
Go ahead.
Okay.
Before we go to the next meeting, go ahead.
Before we get discrete math, just because, and I was going to ask the question, but you kind of addressed it already. I know discrete math coming back, there were a lot of classes that were discontinued last year.
Yes.
Beyond discrete math, I mean, you see a need, has there been, what was the impact? I mean, what's been the feedback now this year?
I felt like we were closer to the target in terms of what we offered is what kids were signing up for. We didn't have this entire pile of courses that weren't running, or we didn't have like this smattering of kids like all over the place. So I felt like the courses that we kept were the appropriate ones. That's not to say that 100% of what we offered still ran. There were a few things that didn't run, so we have to continue to take a look at that to decide, are we going to pull them? Do we need to retweak them? But the other thing too is I felt like, maybe one of the ways to describe it is it helped the program studies feel a little less noisy in terms of like, if you have so many options, but you're not really sure if they're going to run. And so the courses that we did pull last year, if you recall, many of them were courses that hadn't been running for several years, but they just hadn't been like pulled from the program studies at that point. The other thing too is, while we are instituting some new courses, we are making sure that we're continuing to build the pathways. Given our scope and size, we're 900 students in terms of our staff. We have elective areas where many of the elective departments only have 2 faculty members in them. We have to really continue to be focused on, where can we get the most out of our instruction and our pathway and our curriculum. As much as we want to be everything to everybody, it's really important that we also focus on certain areas and really, that we're robust in those areas and we offer the best that we can in those particular areas and try not to spread ourselves too thin. So I feel like we're really getting to a good point of still having breadth as well as now being able to offer depth in areas.
Thank you.
So you did an excellent job of clarifying the suspended courses. I just want to reiterate it. I'm not going to clarify it because you did that. The courses were suspended last year, the large number that we worked on, because of a lack of student interest in those courses.
Correct.
And so that continues to be the driving force toward which courses are going to run, the ones that have enough interest to run.
Right.
Thank you.
So the other new program that I wanted to propose is to be included in the program studies. You have a separate handout on that in your packet, is something called the Honors Challenge. So one of the things that, as we've been going through the program studies and looking at equity and access for all of our students, we were actually starting to notice a difference in terms of the opportunities that were being provided in the core area courses versus the elective area courses. So we started to do a little bit of a dig in terms of, a dive into what are we actually offering in terms of AP, ECE, honors, and advanced courses in core courses versus elective area courses. And we found that there's really a great discrepancy. The other thing too is that we've been receiving a lot of feedback about, honoring and pushing our career and technical areas as well as some of our other elective areas, and providing that complexity and depth and looking at more personalized pathways for students, because not every student may follow a very traditional type of path. So that has led us to want to propose an honors challenge. So basically the concept behind this is that the honors challenge would be offered for select courses in our elective areas where, for the most part, all of those classes are heterogeneously grouped. And this would provide an opportunity to offer depth as well as perhaps independent projects, opportunities with our co-curriculars, internships, and just varied pathways for students that may have a particular passion in an area and they want to go deeper in terms of that. Again, given our scope and size, if we were a much larger high school, we perhaps could have an opportunity to say take a marketing class and offer, say, advanced marketing or honors marketing versus regular marketing. But because of our scope and size and the fact that we, again, in many departments only have 2 FTE dedicated to that, we can't really spread ourselves thin. If we do that, then we lose the breadth. We lose the different types, all the different types of classes that we would be able to offer. So this is a way of being able to differentiate for students. It also supports some of the board's the core values that were just adopted in terms of flexible use of resources and providing opportunities for exploration, reflection, and independence. It aligns with our Berlin Public Schools District Continuous Improvement Plan in terms of creating additional opportunities for students to pursue personal learning goals. And it's also in alignment with the new state graduation requirements that is encouraging flexible and multiple pathways to learning, career and technical education, work-based learning, internships, and student design independent studies. So basically the concept behind this is if I sign up for a particular course that's being offered at an honors challenge, I can take it basically at our standard college prep level, or if I want, I can contract into an honors challenge. If I contract into an honors challenge, then there may be certain assignments or opportunities that are presented to me that I would need to fulfill in order to earn honors credit come the end of the course. So I would have to fulfill the requirements of the contract, and then I would also have to make sure that I successfully complete the course, whether it's a semester course or a year-long course. So just to give you some additional considerations in trying to develop this was, again, we talked a little bit about the imbalance of advanced and honors courses offered between elective departments and core areas. So we currently offer 90 courses in the core departments. 30% of those courses are offered at an AP, ECE, honors, or advanced level, allowing students to do more complex, more in-depth work. In our elective area departments, we actually offer 73 different courses, so keep in mind that our elective area teachers oftentimes have a lot of preps. But we're only offering 11% of those courses, a total of 8 courses at the honors or advanced level. Of those 8, 5 are specifically in art, because AP art is actually offered for drawing and painting, 2D and 3D. So that takes 3 right there. Okay, so we have no advanced or honors courses available in tech ed. We have 1 in family and consumer science, 1 in music, and at this point 1 in business. So this is an opportunity for our students that are passionate in these areas, that they, in terms of following pathways that they want to go in, that they can also contract into doing more in-depth types of work. I think it promotes that rigorous college and career ready, personalized learning pathways in all of our areas beyond just our core departments, particularly in our career and technical programs, which we have been hearing a lot from the public. I feel like as well from the board that it's important that we promote all of those areas and expand our opportunities in those areas. So it does expand that opportunity for complexity and depth, and it provides a consistent access to and participation in alternate learning opportunities for all students across all pathways. So we are working on building out some of these different opportunities. So for example, there's a wide variety of opportunities that will be available for students to select from. So I'll give you one example that we discussed in our curriculum committee meeting this evening. So we worked on an example in the music department. So one of the things a student could contract out to do would be to go to an external concert of their choice. Connected with that external concert, they would have a reflection assignment that actually aligns with the national music standards, which is what our curriculum is built around in terms of creating and responding. So they would experience things in a wide variety of areas. I also had an opportunity to meet last week with Mrs. Dennis, who's coordinating our CTE departments, and we were talking about the standards in family and consumer science as well as in business, and building out those opportunities that would align with the standards. So not only would you have students experiencing opportunities across all the various standards, but again, that opportunity for added depth as well as complexity. So sometimes it might be an in-class assignment that's offered. So if I'm not in the honors challenge, I may have these opportunities. If I'm in the honors challenge, I may have something else that requires additional skill or complexity or research or depth. We also talked about this as a way to promote some of our co-curricular opportunities, our internship opportunities that actually provide what I would consider some really authentic types of learning and opportunities connected particularly to our elective areas. So we're currently proposing that we have 2 courses designated for each of the 5 elective areas with which we would offer this honors challenge. And again, it's an option for students. They can opt in in the beginning of the year or the beginning of the semester. If they don't meet the requirements of the contract, there's no penalty against them. They just wouldn't have it just wouldn't be designated as an honors challenge course, and they wouldn't get that honors challenge credit at the end, but they still would have likely successfully completed the course otherwise.
So somebody could get an A in class and then could not fulfill the requirements of the honors challenge, and therefore it would just end at the A. There's no more. There's no penalty.
Correct. No. So if in the end they didn't fulfill the contract, they would still get the A in the class, and it would be on their transcript as marketing 2. Okay. Versus if I did fulfill that and then I met all the requirements and I did the additional in-depth work, it would be marketing 2, honors challenge, and then there would be the honors credit bump as well.
So somebody could begin down that path and a month in decide, what, this is a little too much.
Yes.
And I could drop without any penalty.
Yes.
We actually talked about that at great length about the opting in, like when kids would have to choose if they were, because we also didn't want kids to not do that year and then choose at the last minute and think that they could get honors credit, which would be May and June. And so we think that this is a fair way, and it also means that in terms of the technical side of tracking out people's transcripts, you're not essentially rolling them to one level of class, then moving them to an honors level class, then rolling them back and forth.
How are the teachers feeling about this?
They're actually, believe it or not, they're actually really excited about this. Initially we started out, I think, with a little bit of a wider scope, and I think the fact that we scaled back and opted for 2 classes in each department, I feel as though they feel really good. They're really excited about the opportunity. They think, one, it will, I think they feel like it may draw some kids in, but it also may encourage some kids to stay and further go down some of these pathways that we're working on building out a little bit more. I also see this as kind of trickling out over the first few years. I think it's going to take a couple of years, like at least 2 or 3 years for this to really catch on, for students to fully understand the opportunities that would be available and how they can maximize some of the different types of opportunity and be able to take advantage of that. And again, it is that idea of equity and access, that we shouldn't be reserving all of the honors opportunities mainly in our core areas. And so I think that this is a really wonderful way to honor the work and encourage kids to do some deeper, more complex work with their teachers. So I think that the teachers that I've spoken with and worked with this so far are really excited about the opportunity for this.
I think it aligns very well with the work that we did about a year ago at the workshop as well, of providing multiple pathways and trying to encourage people to follow their dream instead of the typical, we're only pushing toward the 4-year college. Not that that's not important, but there are other pathways as well. Before we go further on this or even have a motion, Jenna, all right, you're back in the spotlight. Pretend Mrs. Eustace is not sitting in front of you. What do you think about the concept of the Honors Challenge? I know this won't have any impact on you because you're gone to live your life after this, but what do you think about it?
I think it's really cool because I know some of my friends would benefit from some of the music courses having that Honors Challenge option. But as I was sitting here, I was thinking the same thing that you were asking Mr. Salina about the GPA-ness of it. That's not a word, but you know what I mean. Because if you pick afterwards to do the Honors Challenge, how does that impact the GPA?
So basically, the idea would be you'd have to contract in in the beginning of the course, within the first 3 to 4 weeks. You can't just all of a sudden decide halfway through or second semester. So the idea too is that Honors Challenge work would be built in throughout the semester as well as throughout the school year. So it's not just all done in one fell swoop. So because I understand that there may be, it's not meant to be an easier path to get a grade bump or boost. It is the idea of being able to promote students pursuing their passions or the more in-depth, and also the opportunity that I think we have to find some balance between the core areas and the elective areas as a way to honor all of those areas and do that in-depth work.
Do you think that had this been an opportunity for you, might you have considered one of these elective area courses if you thought, because I'm sure you're an overachiever, might you have considered that if you thought, hey, I can get honors credit and follow something that I really enjoy doing too?
Perhaps. I haven't found that big of an interest in the elective courses, but I did take the UConn Family Development last year, and I really enjoyed that, so
Thank you. No, it's an honest answer. No, I appreciate that. Thank you for your opinion. Do we have a motion, and then we can discuss after the motion is made?
Before we go to the motion.
Go ahead.
Did you say that this has not gone to print yet?
Correct.
Okay, so just notes. On page 1, it still has Carrie and I as the officers for the Board of Education.
Oh, I meant to
Yes.
mention that.
So
yes.
it hasn't had a final proofread because we normally don't present the program of studies till January, but because we backed it up a month and we wanted to ensure that the new things were going to be approved, it needs another proofread. I just want to let you
I'm
know.
glad you mentioned that, because I didn't want to say, hey, my name's not in here yet.
Well, you've already pointed out that I had to change my signature line.
That's true, yes.
So that's why it's marked draft all throughout.
Yep,
because
and on
we know
page
that there's some small-
52, where you talk about the psychology lab, it says something like, it will full the capstone.
Yes.
So,
As I said, it hasn't had a final.
no, I'm just,
it's-
just picking up, just
Yes,
notes
thank you.
that those are there, because spell check or grammar check might not pick them up.
Yes,
So,
thank you.
yeah, you're not really thinking, you're saying, well, sure.
I'm impressed that you read through all 52 pages.
Honestly, we were not, Mrs. Rito and myself, we weren't able to read every word for word prior to this meeting because we anticipated this was gonna be on January meeting, but it got backed up. So that's why it's marked, every page says draft on it, I just want you to
Yeah,
know
no,
it's
it's
not
fine.
a draft that's going to print.
So those are just a couple of things that
Yes.
stuck out, so.
We were concerned about doing this conversation on top of all the budget presentations.
No, this is a good idea. The timing's right here. Do we have a motion then, and then?
I'll make a motion to approve new course offerings and revisions to the Berlin High School Program of Studies for 2020 through 2021 as presented.
Second.
There we go. Do we have any further discussion on this?
One thing that just popped into my head, despite our many hours of talking about this already in committee and elsewhere, for some reason now the word honors challenge just started to jump out at me. Are we anticipating that all of these will be honors, i.e. 8 credit or 8-point potential bump? Or could you fall into an advanced 4-point bump?
We're anticipating that it would be the 8 credit bump because our other honors classes that are labeled honors are also at that bump, and we will keep that in mind as we look at the significance of the work that would need to be connected to.
Right, okay.
I actually, just to let you know, I did a study of like 17, 18 different districts in terms of their, how their ratings on everything, and, or the way in which they do their GPA scales, and the majority of them, they distinguish, they have honors and advanced, many of them have that separated out, and then AP and ECE separately, but we only pull out our advanced classes, and it's a very small number of classes that we're down to, and some of it has to do with the elimination of some of the tracks that we had in the past, over the years, that we're down to about maybe 6 courses that are left in that like middle lane.
That are just the advanced level, okay.
Yeah.
Is it possible, like looking through that list, like the advanced chemistry at the 9th grade level, is that an honors or is that an advanced?
That's advanced right now, but to be honest with you, this work on the honors challenge actually raised the exact question that you are asking, and I do think that that's another thing that we're gonna have to take a look at. And, with the board as well as, with the school, and really take a look at where everything is placed.
Okay, yeah.
Any other questions or comments? All right, hearing none. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? It's unanimous. Nice job. Congratulations. Nice job. Last up, policy and review revision. Second reading adoption. 2 new policies. The new policy 1161, the armed security officers. That's the second reading there. And the revised policy 9085 on time, place, and notice of meetings. That is also a second reading.
If I could just mention on the
Sure.
armed security officers, there was some wording change. I want to just draw your attention to it. It's 4th line up in the 2nd paragraph. security officer reasonably believes to be an imminent use of deadly physical force. So that was a little wording change from the last. Go from the second paragraph, fourth one up, security officer reasonably believes. That was the only phrase that was changed from the first reading.
They added the word reasonably?
Reasonably.
Yeah, that's what I didn't think that was in there the first time.
Didn't we also say superintendent of schools or designate, or designate? Or is
Yeah,
that
and
necessary?
we had that in there, and it wasn't thought to be necessary. I did check on that.
Okay. It was at the end of the first
Yep,
paragraph.
yep, because it was stayed up above.
Okay.
In the notice of the meetings, we just only made, the second policy, we only made the changes as suggested, which was the opening of the time start.
Right.
Time. That was all, that was changed. Just want to draw your attention to those two.
Yep.
So do we have a motion, and then we can discuss if there's any further discussion?
I'll make a motion that the board adopt the new policy 1161, armed security officers, and revised policy number 9085, time, place, and notice of meetings as presented.
Second.
Second by Tim. So do we have any further discussion on either of these items?
Just a quick comment, the time, place, and notice of meetings, they used to say 7 o'clock, we're going to change it to 6 o'clock, and then we decided, don't put a time in. Just, makes it easier, so if we
It does,
decide
so if we
go
need to
back 7
change again,
o'clock,
we can make an adjustment. Anything else? Okay, all those in favor? Aye. Opposed? It passes unanimously. So we're down at the end of the list, adjournment. Do I have a motion?
No.
I'll move to adjourn.
Second.
Here we go.
Who made the
All those in
motion?
favor,
Adam?
Adam made the motion, Tim seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you very much, everybody.
Thank you.